and welcome along to another Sheer Smokes, a rather damp episode today. You join me again in between shifts. Yeah, it's been one of those weeks at work. I finished again this morning, starting again at 3, so no point going home. So I've come up to one of the local country parks, just outside Falkirk, and I do have some company with me. There was a young deer just running about the woods when I first drew up. But sadly, couldn't get the camera out in time. But yeah, that was quite a nice treat to see a young deer frolicking about. As I say, it's a bit damp. There has been thunder and lightning earlier on this morning. It's like heavy monsoon weather during the night. So yeah, just killing time in between shifts, and I just thought I'd share time with you. I'm going to go and take some shelter and continue the video then. Hi, and welcome back. And thankfully, the rain has held off. A slight drizzle, but it's bearable, it's not bad. And there's a bit of sun behind the clouds, so there's quite a bit of warmth in the air, which is nice. And the pipe I have today is the real briar smooth army mount. I got this from the Edinburgh Pipe Shop online. And in the bowl, I've got the Savinelli English mixture. This came through from Smokey Dan. So thank you, Dan, for that. Again, another first for me. And first impressions. When I opened the bag, there was that smokiness that came through, and the sweetness from the Virginias. There's burley in there, there's latakia, and on doing some research, it states that the mixture is actually 30% latakia. There seemed to be a bit of a divide in the camps. There's some that raved about it, others that said they would never touch it again. This is actually my second bottle. I gave it a run out prior to filming, just to get my own kind of thoughts on it. And right away, it reminded me, and again, this is my opinion as a novice pipe smoker. It reminded me a lot of the Bothy Flake, as in that sort of campfire feel to it. Yeah, it's quite a mild medium smoke probably, but yeah, enjoying it. I think this is known as a coarse cut. It's quite large strands. I could have maybe used probably a larger bowl, but this one's doing the job fine. Yeah, this is it's working out nicely. So as I said earlier at the beginning, I'm just on a in between shifts at the moment, so this is quite a nice spot actually, just to chill out again. But I thought I would, while I was here, I would just there's a bit of a VR to Smoking Carboard via Smokey Dan. Smoking Carboard had relayed some family stories on a previous video, and Smokey Dan had put his video up recounting tales of his Italian grandmother, which was just amazing. And so I thought I would chime in with a little family story of my own. And this concerns my dad, and it's quite nice timing actually, because this is the anniversary of my dad passing away. It's 4 years on the 4th of July. So quite nice to recount a tale which involves him, and actually involves my mum as well. So I think I've mentioned in the past that my dad was in show business. He was actually a professional magician, and in the early 60s, a few years before I was born, my dad was invited to join a concert party from Scotland to go on tour in Russia, which is a big story in itself, especially back in those days. So anyway, obviously my dad agreed, and but of course he had to adapt his act, as my dad was known as a comedy magician, and my dad used to work the theatres, clubs of Scotland, Northern England, before going out and touring Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, quite a few times with different Scottish concert parties. Um, but the Russia trip was the very first overseas concert tour that he was going to be embarking on. So he decided to adapt his act, and mainly because obviously of the language barrier. So he decided to do a silent act instead. And he somehow managed to rope my mum in as his glamorous assistant, and decided on, as a highlight of the act, he would do an illusion. And this is the illusion in question. So yeah, so that was the illusion that my dad came up with, and my dad came up with quite a good routine as well, just to inject some humour into it as well. And what would happen is when the third sword went into the box, my mum would let out a terrified scream, and the audience would soon realise that my dad was actually standing on my mum's foot, which I think is quite a great gag, and I'd love to have seen that in person, but I can see it in my mind how my dad would have played that out, and I think it's just brilliant. Um, Anyway, in the lead up to the tour, obviously my dad had to do a lot of rehearsing with my mum, and once they had done that, they then decided to do a couple of live runs, and my dad had a couple of theatre gigs booked before the tour, and that's where the photograph came from. Anyway, my mum decided before going on this tour that she would keep up with the height of fashion, and in those days it was the beehive, kind of Amy Winehouse style, and on the fateful night on the stage, the first sword went in, fine. The second sword went in, at which point my mum let out a terrified scream, and my dad muttering under his breath, I won't say the exact words, "You're too early, you're too early." At which point my dad realised there was blood trickling down from inside the box. So obviously the beehive had redirected the sword and actually cut into my mum's head. No permanent damage done, thankfully, and my dad was able to finish off the illusion without much of the audience knowing what was actually going on. The show must go on and all that. Um, but the tour itself went off without a hitch, and my dad said it was just an amazing experience. They actually performed that illusion in Gorky Park. I think it was 20,000 of the faithful workers were rounded up. But my dad said it was such a great experience, and they were really warmly received. Obviously, back in those days, the KGB had a huge hand in the tour, and they were each given minders who accompanied them no matter where they went. Um, but my dad said they got some really nice experiences. They got taken to the Moscow Ballet and watched the Nutcracker, which he said was just an amazing time. They also got taken to the KGB headquarters, and I'm pretty sure this was all part of a propaganda push, so they could take the word back to the Western world on how far the Russians had come in the world of telecommunications. And the KGB had installed a new communications centre, and the guy conducting the tour had said we can contact anyone from here, anywhere in the world. And, is there anyone you'd like to phone? Now, in those days, my gran and granddad, my dad's mum and dad, um, didn't have a house phone. Um, as it was all done by, communication was all done by neighbours in those days. And so my dad, being my dad, decided he would phone his beloved Glasgow Rangers, as prior to going on tour, there was a rumour that the legendary Jim Baxter was going to be re-signing, and it hadn't been confirmed at the time of my dad leaving for Russia. So he said, well, I'd like to contact Rangers Football Club. To which point the guy said, yeah, no problem. In a heavy Russian accent, of course. And duly, the club was contacted, and Dad got through to the switchboard. And my dad said, "Hi, I'm just phoning to see, did Jim Baxter sign?" And the guy was quite surprised because he was like, "Yeah, he signed yesterday. It's been all over the news, all over the papers. Where have you been?" And my dad goes, "Well, I'm actually in Russia." To which the guy responded, "Aye, very good. I'll crack the jokes," and promptly hung up on my dad, which I think is just a brilliant little side story. Um, on returning from the tour, my dad was awarded the Silver Star from the Inner Magic Circle for his services to magic and for being the first British magician to actually tour Russia, which is something that I have in my collection, which is something I'm quite proud of. Um, so a little family tale there. Um, so I love hearing family stories, especially involving my dad. Um, my uncle David, who I've mentioned before, I go and see him probably about once a fortnight when I can, depending on my shifts. And he and my dad worked together for quite a while, and he has some amazing stories. And although I hear them, repeated all the time, I just love it. And yeah, we always have a great hour or two together, just recounting the tales of their times on the road. So yeah, which is always nice. So on that happy note, I'm going to finish off my bowl before returning to work. Thanks again for tuning in. Hope you're all having a good week. And until the next episode, my name's Shearer. Enjoy your smokes.